are at the beginning still of the fourth day of our session. Fortunately, we can stretch time by just sitting and swim in eternity. And sometimes it really feels like eternity when Evo takes his time until he rings the bell. At the beginning, first short remark on the state of my health. I'm still somewhat feeling cold, but it's nothing to be concerned about. I'm very well looked after, and so you can really dive into your practice and don't have to worry whether I will survive. In today's case, we will encounter Bodhidharma. His Japanese name is Daruma. He is said to be the first Chinese patriarch, a long lineage of teachers. So he's said to be the one who brought Chan Buddhism to China. And we will hear a little bit about his story. That little that we know about his story. So he's said to be the first patriarch, but of course other sources claim he is the second. So, but these lineages, they are anyway mostly construed. So, but it has been since old. Also in the Christian tradition, every priest claims to be in direct succession back to Jesus, and so it's in Buddhism no different. So, and even when I was receiving my authorization as a Zen teacher, one of the rituals was to write the chart, the blood chart, from Buddha, Shakyamuni, through the whole lineage, through Bernie Glassman, and then Niklaus and Pia, and the last name would then be mine. So it's just the idea of, I'm deeply connected with the ancestry. Of course, also some claim of, since this is an unbroken blood lineage, my authorization also comes from the boss himself, or the source himself. We can look at that again in a legalistic way. But we can also look at it as, commitment to a long line of women and men who were true to what they perceived, what they learned from the teachings, and were committed to pass on. And in this regard, we should honor this lineage. And just to read a few, there was, of course, Shakyamuni, Buddha himself, and then the first or the successors in the long line, Mahakashyapa, Anam Nanda, Shanavasa, Upagupta, Tritaka, Mikata, Vasumitra, Buddhanandi, Buddhamitra, Varshava, Punyashas, Ashagosha, Kapimala, Nagarjuna, Kanadeva, Rahulata, Sanganandi, Gayashata, Kumashte, Rajnatara, Buddhidharma, or Bodhidharma. So, with a few exceptions, these have been the first 28. So, Bodhidharma was the 28th since Shakyamuni, but the first in China. So, the story. And even though his existence is rather legendary, first we only know, he came from the western regions, which was in the old China, just pointing roughly at some direction where he was from. So that could have been Central Asia, so Mongolia or someplace. Other sources say, he was Persian or from southern India, just from somewhere from the west. And so, in the early legends, the important question also for teaching was coined. What was the reason why Bodhidharma came from the west? And it's about a question of the similar importance as, does a dog have Buddha nature? So, why the heck did he come from the west? So, what's that deeper meaning? Of course, that takes some time to ponder about. There was one story that is told about many centuries later. Of course, like every good story, it gets richer over time. It's like cheese, it ripens. And so, after a few hundred years, they added, he was the third son of a Brahmin king from India. Suddenly, he was the son of a king. Who knows? Of course, he was a noble teacher, so he could also be a son of a king. Another story is that on entering China, so the research thinks that he must have come from the west over the sea into China, and then of course that was a crucial moment, and legend has it that on entering China he met the Emperor Wu. Other sources say also Emperor Wu, which means Emperor Absence or Emperor Nothing, which would also be an interesting turn of the story. But in our story, I'm referring to its Emperor Wu of Lyon. And on meeting the emperor asks him, what is the profound meaning of the holy truth? So the emperor wants to know from this foreign guy, from this foreign teacher, so what's your view on the matter of the holy truth? And Bodhidharma, being the true Zen guy who doesn't want himself to be cornered, says, vast and void, no holiness. So, vast and void, no holiness. So cutting right through our notions, yeah, if it's not holy, then it's unworthy. All these dualistic concepts he goes right through and says, in the ultimate truth is beyond these categories of holy and not holy. So, vast and void, open space, just given to our disposal. No holiness. Emperor Wu was, of course, a bit puzzled why a guy would say such a thing, and asked him, "Who are you to say this to me?" And Bodhidharma's answer was, "I don't know. So I don't know who am I, or who I am." Again, going beyond our categories of self and identity, because if we really dive deeply into practice, we realize at the end of the day, I can't really say what I am substantially. Of course, I can say, yeah, I'm a Swiss, I'm born in Switzerland, I have a German passport, and a whole long line of facts also about myself. But at the end of the day, it's not wrong to end up like Lin Shi, who says, I am without rank and name. Because all the other things, they are just descriptions, things I tell myself and others about myself. But are they substantial? And so also Bodhidharma just answers flat out, I don't know. And then walks off, and again Emperor Wu is a bit upset about this rudeness of this guy. This doesn't provide satisfying answers, and even is so rough to just walk off. Something unthinkable towards an emperor. So that's some impressions of this guy we don't know much about. There's a lot of legends. He should have reached, or it's said he reached also the age of 120. So all biblical age guys we hear about these days. Then he was called the blue-eyed barbarian from the western region. Blue-eyed barbarian just meaning, yeah, he was a non-Chinese, a bloody foreigner, so to speak. Critical research dates him back to around the first half of the 5th century. According to some sources, but yeah, we don't really know. What's for sure, or pretty much for sure, is that he came to China. And legend also has it that he was, for the first 9 years, he was sitting against a wall, meditating in a Shaolin monastery, and in the end, obviously impressed the Chinese by this behavior. Perhaps he was just also so desperate because no one wanted to listen to a foreigner. So he didn't have a choice other than sitting against the wall. Because, as a Buddhist teacher, he also brought with him the teaching of the Buddha. He was said to have taught a lot about the Lankavatara Sutra, a sutra that goes back also to Buddha. And in that sutra, Buddha is having a dialogue with one of his students. And it goes about concepts of emptiness, non-identity, sudden enlightenment, vegetarianism, all these different topics that are also typical for Buddhist teaching. And coming to China, of course, those who have been here in May, when I gave the introduction to Buddhism and Zen, know it was an encounter between Chinese Taoism that has had a very long history already by that time. So with Lao Tse, Confucius, and other philosophers of Chinese thought. And that came together with the Buddhist teaching. And from that, Zen really originated. So it was this amalgam of Chinese thought with Buddhist teaching that came to bring forth Zhan in China, that is these days known as Zen. So we can realize or say Bodhidharma came from some foreign place, probably needed some acculturation to get to know China and its thinking. And after this fruitful years of sitting against the wall, he started to teach. And one of his first students was Daizu Huike, in Japanese Jinko, or in his teacher name later on Eka. So this Daizu Huike, that was the 29th follower after Buddha, or the second patriarch. And this is sort of the scenery for this koan we will consider today. Daizu Huike, he was a Taoist scholar. So he was very studied in Chinese literature, thought, and philosophy. He, on encountering Buddhism, so Bodhidharma was not the first to bring Buddhism to China, but the development of Zen goes back to Bodhidharma. So Daizu Huike obviously also studied Mahayana, so the branch of Buddhism which is very much concerned not only to liberate oneself, but also, for everyone, living up the teachings of Buddhism for the liberation of everyone. But he also studied Theravada Buddhism. Back then it was usually referred to as Hinayana. So the great vehicle is Mahayana, and the lower vehicle, where it's just about oneself, it's called Hinayana. But these categories don't really apply. He then obviously was not satisfied with the limitations of studying scriptures and teachings, and heard probably about this strange guy sitting against the wall. and went to him. And in one encounter with Bodhidharma, it's recorded that Bodhidharma then asked him, "What is your motivation to come here?" And Teisho then said, "I want to know the absolute truth, even at risk of my life." So the scenery was then, he was standing out in the snow, and Bodhidharma, being a strict foreigner, didn't let him into his heated room and just left that guy outside in the snow. And Teisho was standing there all night, and in the morning the snow was already up to his knees, and he still stood there. And that's when Bodhidharma asked him, "What's it with you? Who can be so stupid and stay all night in the snow?" And he said, "Yeah, I want to really commit myself to know more, or everything about absolute truth, even at the risk of my life." In the end, he admitted Teisho as his student. So, and that's when we encounter these two guys. So, an old mountain monastery that has existed before Bodhidharma, he facing the wall, sitting there, and then the second patriarch arriving. Okay. Bodhidharma puts the mind to rest. The case. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. The second patriarch, standing in the snow, cut off his arm and said, "Your disciple's mind is not yet at peace. I beg you, master, give it rest." Bodhidharma said, "Bring your mind to me and I will put it to rest." The patriarch said, "I have searched for the mind, but have never been able to find it." Bodhidharma said, "I have finished putting it to rest for you." Obvious, very logical. Yeah, the logical thing is Bodhidharma is just who he is, and he sits to the wall, that's what he loves to do. the second patriarch standing in the snow, cutting off his arm. Here it gets already pretty tricky. Again, koans are often just a condensate of bringing really a scenery to its climax. It's like a good cartoon, pointing out the very fact where we can either laugh about or be puzzled about. Like here, being puzzled about this guy standing in the snow and cutting off his arm and saying, "Your disciple's mind is not yet at peace. I beg you, Master, give it rest." We can discuss whether it's useful to cut off one's arm. So we can read from it. Yeah, this as we see, is a man of great resolve and determination. At least the story shows us this. Who else would be cutting off his arm just to demonstrate that he really wants to learn? But we don't really know. Sometimes humans can be pretty troubled souls. And also here, even though we don't know the circumstances of his state of mind, it could well be that he lost his arm in some battle, in some fight, or due to an infection, and the arm had to be chopped off. No matter what the reason behind is, might involve really a troubled mind. I can remember when I first met Claude Anshin Thomas 26, 27 years ago in a street retreat in Basel. He, at that time, was not so long yet himself a Zen teacher. He was studying with Thich Nhat Hanh at that time, and he shared often about his traumatic experiences during the Vietnam War. So he was a person who was deeply traumatized by the war. On the one side, he shared how he would go in a supermarket and suddenly it would just trigger him a panic attack, taking a can of soup out of the shelf and being totally convinced that it is a booby trap hidden there by some Vietnamese partisans. Not to mention also his responsibility in killing hundreds of people as a commander of the helicopter crew he was responsible for. Then he met Thich Nhat Hanh, and that helped him to some degree bring his mind to rest. But still, it was a long process. Here in the koan, the second patriarch, out of his notion, I need absolutely to find out, went to Bodhidharma and insisted, standing the night out in the snow, on, hey, you gotta help me at least bring my mind to rest. The story about cutting off the arm, I have my own take on that. So, like Bodhidharma suddenly is the third son of an Indian Brahman. So I just push the notion that it is hardly believable that the second patriarch could chop off his arm and lost it otherwise. Why do I say that? I remember when I was beginning of the 90s in Switzerland, I studied nursing in a mental hospital. And there, one day, we had a patient admitted to our facility. So it was the emergency admittance station. So people in acute psychosis or acute depression after suicide attempts were admitted into a ward hall where about 10 beds would be lined up, and we staff, we would just observe and make sure nobody hurt himself or others. And there was this man admitted directly from hospital where he had a surgery after being convinced that he, in his psychosis, is an unredeemable sinner, reading a passage from Mark 9, and then decided, in fact, to chop off his arm. So he read this passage: if your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed than with 2 hands to go into hell, where the fire never goes out. He attempted to chop his arm off with an axe. Fortunately, he didn't succeed. His hand could be saved. But he had to spend months of recovery. First physical, but then also underwent mental treatment until, his frenzy, his psychosis started to fade away, and he became, still troubled, but a member of society. So, when we come back to our koan, when this man, the second patriarch, really, sincerely begs his master, your disciple's mind is not yet at peace. I beg you, master, give it peace, give it rest. And Bodhidharma, being wise as he is, asks, bring me your mind and I will put it to rest. So he's not just some sort of a healer and makes some ceremony. He asks the second patriarch, go and get it, bring it to me, I will put it to rest. And of course the patriarch then tried to settle his mind or confine it and bring it and bring it to Bodhidharma. He invested a lot of trust in. But in the end, he had to admit to himself, I have searched for the mind, but have never been able to find it. That could be, on the one hand, understood as, I failed in bringing you my mind. I tried everything, I couldn't gather it, and I'm a useless fellow. I should probably have done much worse than just try to chop off my arm. But that's too linear an understanding of this koan, because it's also already an expression of resolve. Of course, I searched for my mind. I searched for the mind, but never have I been able to find it. Because what is there to find? Remember, koans, they always point beyond our ordinary realm of forms of empirical facts, goes beyond, points beyond. And so the word of Bodhidharma could also be, well, I've finished putting it to rest for you, or I did my job, or yeah, good, are we on the way together? So we resolved it. You as a student, I as a, what can I teach? I can encourage to make experiences. Let's then move on to Mumon's commentary. The broken-toothed old barbarian came thousands of miles across the sea with an active spirit. It can rightly be said that he raised waves where there was no wind. In later life he obtained one disciple, but even he was crippled in his six senses. The fools do not even know four characters. According to Yamada Roshi, the broken-toothed old barbarian, the broken-toothed comes from poisonous attempts. Unknown enemies of Bodhidharma made to threaten his life. It's said that he kept the poison within his mouth, which destroyed his teeth but spared his life. And this foreigner we were talking about, it now comes thousands of miles across the sea with an active spirit. So yeah, it's just making this Bodhidharma a person of active spirit. So he didn't just really only sit towards the wall. If you are the source of a development in all China, that's then called Chan and goes back to the name Bodhidharma, then you're not just sitting around. So it's an active spirit. And it can also be rightly said that he raises waves where there was no wind. So the Chinese, they perceived him rather reluctantly. So he made waves and yeah, that's my method, and you have to sit against the wall, and then everything becomes much clearer. Whereas first the Chinese, there was no wind, there was no movement or no desire to integrate this new teaching. And only little by little it really was integrated into something more than just integrating. In later life he obtained one disciple, but even he was crippled in his six senses. So both student and the teacher in the ultimate dimension, in the absolute, they're both crippled of their six senses. Because this realm of absence, of emptiness, formlessness, there are no senses that could function. Ergo, the fools do not even know four characters. If you're robbed of your ability to use your senses, you can't even write four letters. A, B, C, D. Period. The verse, coming from the West and pointing directly to it, all the trouble comes from the transmission. The one who disturbs the monasteries is originally you. So that is again some amount of irony here. This foreigner claiming that he has some sort of transmission back to this Buddha. He comes here and disturbs our monasteries, our traditions. So you actually make a lot of trouble. But we can also coin it to ourselves. So did we already clarify it? Shouldn't we go deeper and really clarify it? Put our mind to rest? So that's the task at hand during Sesshin, during life actually. But for now it's just a task for Sesshin. I thank you very much.